So, who could raise their hand and tell me one of the vocabulary words and where they go? Does anybody know where any of these would go on a graph? You can pick whichever one you feel confident. No one knows? Brilliant. The y-intercept. So where would that go? What color? On here. Or what color would it be? Which dot is the purple one, right? So the y-intercept is the purple one. And that shouldn't really be new. It's where it crosses the y-axis. And remember, if we can make a y out of that axis right here, the y-axis is our y-intercept. So this point would be our y-intercept. Who can raise their hand and tell me the coordinates for that y-intercept? Who can raise their hand and tell me what is the coordinate for that y-intercept? Jalen? 0, good. And then -3. So the x is always 0 during your y-intercept. Beautiful. Who could tell me another one? You can use color. Jay. The vertex. What color is that one? Green. So this is called the vertex. And we're going to go over that today. Maybe you guys have heard of it before. But I just remember when I write vertex, see how it has a literal vertex on it like that? Vertex is your little bump. And so like basically where it goes, that little part where it stops and goes back down, that's your vertex. So the very top or the very bottom of the parabola. Parabola is the whole shape. So quadratics are in the shape of a parabola. Has anyone ever watched SpongeBob before? Anybody? And you know he was like rainbow. So when I teach parabola, I make you guys go parabola. Can you say it with me? This class is kind of quiet. So parabola. And so although it's kind of silly, it's like when SpongeBob does his rainbow, that is a parabola. It basically looks like a U or a backwards U. So parabola is this little thing right here. We're going to be seeing a lot of those for the next couple months. Quadratics, I feel like, besides system of equations, which you guys just did, I feel like that was the hardest, but this is also a challenging unit. Unit 5 actually isn't challenging, it's the next unit, but we're learning about the shape of it and the different parts today. That's it. So now, vertex is the very bottom or the very top. And so we know vertex parabolas we see in everyday life, right? So when I'm here playing football, right? When he passes the ball, or he catches it, the vertex is the very top before the ball starts going down. Just like basketball, just like soccer, all sports use parabolas, which are in the shape of either an N, a lowercase n, or a U. And so we're going to kind of learn the significance of them too, especially with sports. What about the red? Who can raise their hand and tell me what are the red dots considered? Over, Jalen. Good, the x-intercepts. And so usually parabolas have 2 x-intercepts because it crosses twice. They're also called roots, and I'm going to be using these interchangeably. And we remember roots because see, it's like in the ground, like the roots when you're planting, right? The roots are in the ground. So right before, you usually can see the roots right when it hits the ground, right here. Those are considered x-intercepts. We also call them zeros and solutions. So any of those words, I'll be using them interchangeably just for you to practice, but they all mean the same thing, which are x-intercepts. And so who can raise their hand and tell me the 2 x-intercepts that are here and how to write those coordinates? You can raise your hand and tell me what are the coordinates besides J? You can tell me the coordinates. Positive. Cool. So this one is +3 and your y is 0, right? So now the zeros just mean your y is here, the opposite. And what's this one? 3? -1. Good. So that's how we write our 2 x-intercepts. A lot of people, I like that you use 0 because a lot of people write -1, 3. But that's not your x-intercepts. They're 2 separate coordinates. And we know zeros, whether y is 0, they're also considered zeros. Cool. Axis of symmetry. Has anyone ever heard of axis of symmetry? I emphasize access because axis of symmetry know if something's symmetrical, right, you can cut it in half and it's even on both sides. So axis of symmetry is just your x coordinate of your vertex, right? It's where I can split it in half and it will be even on both sides. It's always an equation. So some of you, I see triangles in math. You always have to write it as an equation. So it would be x equals, and we look here, and the x coordinate of our vertex is what coordinate? What is this? What's this x coordinate right here? What is 1? Oh, 1. So we write our axis of symmetry, x equals 1. That's also the x coordinate of your vertex. The y coordinate of your vertex is just how low or how high the highest or lowest point is. So here, I would go down 1, 2, 3, 4. And so your vertex would be 1, negative 4. So it's that very bottom or very top, which is min or max. The axis of symmetry, you write as an equation. X equals whatever the x coordinate of your vertex. And I emphasize axis of symmetry with that x coordinate because you remember it's the x coordinate of your vertex. So, how many people knew this before you came in the room? Just. All right, so we're going to take our notes for today. So at this point, let's put all our computers under our desk. You're going to be using them in like 5 minutes. You'll have it. You'll be able to do it. But today we're going to do our green notes. And so you're folding it so it looks like this. And you can cut it if you want to. But the title is right here. So you're folding it not completely in half, but so it looks like this. And so we're going over the different characteristics. Most of this we already did just now, but we're just going to go over it and make sure we understand half of our vocabulary. So this unit really is just vocabulary, like understanding characteristics and transformations. So that's all really this unit is. Next unit's the one that's like factoring. Does anyone remember that? Factoring and quadratic formula and all that. So we're going to start with axis of symmetry. And so remember, I emphasize that axis of symmetry is your x coordinate of your vertex. I need to move this down because I'm really short, so let me do that. So you're writing down for axis of symmetry, it's your x coordinate of your vertex. So I just remember axis of symmetry. And it's basically where the parabola splits in half. Also, does anyone want to borrow a colored pen so you can color code this? If you do, raise your hand up. Anyone else? Anyone else want a colored pen? Okay. So your axis of symmetry is the x coordinate your vertex. So right here we can see is the, remember when I can write vertex, that bottom is your actual vertex. And so right here, I can see it's ending right here. So I know this line will be your axis of symmetry. So I'm going to do it in the same color that I'm doing it on the board. Who can raise their hand and tell me what is that x coordinate in this graph? Okay. 3. 1, 2, 3. So my axis of symmetry would be x equals 3. And that's just the equation of that dotted line. It's the middle. So it's like whatever makes it symmetrical, so it's equal on both sides. Just like if I were to cut your body in half, that sounds gruesome, but it would be symmetrical on each side. It also should be right where that bottom is. The next one is your vertex. And so your vertex is your highest or lowest point of your parabola. And so when we look at this here, we could see your vertex. I always write this like that. So you can see your vertex is their very bottom or very top. Right here with this one, we can see it's our very bottom. And so that point would be your vertex. We already know our x coordinate is going to be 3 because that was our axis of symmetry. Our y coordinate is -1, -2, -3, -4. So your vertex is a point that's the highest or lowest. Basically, when I write V, that very bottom, I remember. I'm going to actually go down to the last one where it says minimum or maximum. And so minimum or maximum means the y value of your vertex. So if you go down right here, and I'll go back up in a second. Minimum and maximum is your y value of your vertex. So usually they say the vertex, or they're asking for min or max, they're asking what is the highest or lowest point, and they're talking about the y because that's up and down. So right here you can see your lowest point would be negative when y is -4. It's your y coordinate of your vertex. It's off to your lowest or highest. Next one's going to be x-intercepts, and the words we use for x-intercepts, again, and I'm going to be stressing this unit, are roots, like roots in the ground, zeros, solutions. Those all mean x-intercepts. And it's where it crosses the x-axis. We always also know our y's are 0. Right. So sometimes we'll learn later on, sometimes there will be 0 x-intercepts, which are actually, if you're taking algebra 2, you'll be learning about that, not in here. There's also sometimes can be 1 x-intercept, so if it bounces off a point, it goes back. And there can be 2, which are usually how it is. So right here, I can see these are my 2 x-intercepts, and those points are 1, 0. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. So those are your 2 x-intercepts. We also know when we're looking at word problems, and we'll be going over this too, when something like hits the ground, that's considered your x-intercept. So like if you're throwing something, like a football, right, and it hits the ground, or it hits a player, like its ending point, that is your x-intercept. So it's basically the starting and the end. Your y-intercept, on the other hand, is usually your initial height, starting height. So it's how high up it is. And so your y-intercept is where it falls on the y-axis. And so right here we can see our y-intercept right there. And it's always 0, something. So right there it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in parabolas, you'll always only have 1 y-intercept. Right there. So it's right across with the y-axis. Last one is direction of facing, and I changed it on your notes. I don't like it. Direction of facing means your leading coefficient. And so remember when we had leading coefficient back in our unit 1, it's whatever number was in the front. This one is depending on our A. And so if A is negative, and this will make some more sense in a couple minutes, if your leading coefficient, whatever's in front, is negative, we know it's going to look like a negative Nancy. And so how I do that, it looks like that. So if the A is negative, See how she's mad, negative Nancy? The parabola will look like that, where it's going down. If it's positive, if A is positive, it would look like a positive Patricia. And it would look like this. So she's happy, positive. It looks like how this one is basically up here. So you can see if I drew some eyes right here, see how she's happy? So we know that A, the direction, it would be positive. And that will make more sense when we go deeper into this. And so what I'm talking about when I say A is this standard form is AX squared plus BX plus C. That is your new standard form. Just like we had AX plus BY equals C, that is your new standard form. So if that number in front is positive, we know it's going to look like a smiley face. If it's negative, we know it's going to look like a frown. And so we know negative Nancy's are going to have a max. So right here, I would write that too. We know negative Nancy's are going to have a max. And why that is, if I draw a negative face, right, the highest point is going to be right there. It's going to have a max. A positive Patricia is going to have a min. That's because it's going to be the lowest. So I use a lot of analogies, although they might sound elementary. It gets you to remember what you need to remember. And that this unit is a lot of those. Did everyone get that down? Okay. So I'll give you a few more minutes. What you're going to do with your group is you're just answering these questions. And also you'll be able to do your delta math. Negative Nancy, we know there's going to be a max because it's going to be your highest point of the parabola. A positive Patricia, we know there's going to be a min. And I know my students were freshmen last year, but the analogy they made up was that positive Patricia gets all the min, and negative Nancy gets no min, or men. That's what they made up. And then the whole class always remembered it that way, so feel free to use it. Okay, so I'm going to go back over this way. And so we'll do one together. And the rest you're going to be doing with your group. And when you're finished, you can just do your delta math and get it done. So first thing we're going to do is the vertex. So who can raise their hand and tell me, or even come up here and show me where the vertex is? You can either describe it or come up here and do it. Who can describe to me where the vertex is? This one would be the highest point, right? And so we know that would be the vertex. And so what is the point of that? The coordinate? 2. Beautiful. Fernando, I don't care which one answers. What would be your axis of symmetry then? X equals 2, because it's your axis of symmetry is your x coordinate of your vertex. So right here we can see that's where it splits in half. Now, if it's frowning, Selena, if it's frowning, would it be a negative Nancy or a positive Patricia? Negative Nancy. So we know our leading coefficient would be negative. There she is. She's frowning. We also know, is she going to have a min or a max? Max, right? Negative Nancy gets no min. She only gets. And we know our max, our y coordinate equals what? Our y, which was our y coordinate? 1. What about our x-intercept? For this one, no, this is your maximum. It's when y is 1. So right here. Your x-intercepts are where it crosses your x-axis. So these two. Yep. So it'd be 1, 0, 3, 0. These these are also known as your roots, solutions, zeros. I'm always going to be drilling that in your little noggin. And your y-intercept is right here. And so that would be 0, comma, -3. And that's all we're doing today. And so your delta math is all it is. It looks like this. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, there's all your pictures. Beautiful student pictures from this year. So we go to, it's parabola features. So it looks like this. So once you're done with the worksheet, I go, okay, it's asking for the roots. Roots means what? X-intercept. So I know that I'm going to have 2 points. And so I could see here it's -6, comma 0. And I could also see it's -4, comma 0. This one says the y-intercept. So they're going to give you different parts of the parabola. Just make sure you're reading what they want you to give. And so y-intercept I know is 1 point. When would it be an equation? What would they be asking for? The axis of symmetry. And so it's always x equals. Cool. So you got